Jones continues his media tour to promote the Cowboys documentary on Netflix. It's been well-timed considering the news around the Cowboys. He was on Good Morning America today, just after shocking the NFL and trading star Micah Parsons to the Packers last week. Here's what he said when asked about it this morning.
We have two kinds of capital or currency in the NFL. One of them is draft picks, and the other is the financial, because every team is limited to the same amount of resources to spend. And having said that, Micah enabled us to have 4, possibly as many as 6 players for the future. That's a good trade when you need numbers. I'll take the numbers every time.
Okay.
So there's that. Who wants that one first? I mean, I don't.
Good, Peter.
I could explode if you wanted me to. Go ahead.
Look, he's got to justify his decision now, and he's going to talk it throughout the week until we play on Thursday that this was the right decision. We won't know until we see how it all plays out, and that may take years down the line. The truth of the matter is, they could have gotten this thing done last year. They didn't. Toothpaste was out of the tube, and Jerry actually made the move. I think a lot of people didn't think he was courageous enough to do, and now he's kind of puffing his chest and saying, here's why I did it, and watch, I'm going to be right, and you're all going to be wrong.
Is it courageous?
I know it was one of the more courageous.
It was
/
bold and audacious. I don't know if it's. I don't know. I just here's a guy who knew in his heart, I'm getting rid of him. And it became personal, and it shouldn't be. It's about football.
This is about, no, let's just say this. If there was a plan instead of an emotional reaction, this is a trade that would have been made in March. You would have been able to involve half the teams in the National Football League and got their best offer, and then you really could have turned this into 6 good players for the future. That's when it would have made sense. When you trade him on a Thursday because your game planning for week 1 starts on Friday, you wind up getting 2 number 1s from the Packers that might as well be second-round picks. They're both going to be in the late 20s. Packers might win the whole damn thing with Micah. It becomes the 32nd pick in the draft, so you don't get anywhere near the same caliber of 4 or 6 players.
They got him here.
At best. That's a great deal. This was a terribly handled situation. It doesn't matter what happens. Whatever winds up happening is separate. You can only judge this based upon what happened, how we got here, and the way they chose to handle it. It was miserably mishandled regardless of the outcome. Neek, why are you looking at me like that?
I mean, in Jerry's defense, situations change. So, I agree that had he done this earlier, things would have worked out better. But that's not how it happened. And I always find myself trying to defend some of these decisions. I think back to, Terry Fontenot deciding to draft Michael Penix despite paying Kirk Cousins. And that made sense to me. You don't pass up on what you think is a franchise quarterback just because you have one on the roster. That's a bad decision. The tough thing about Jerry Jones is that it's not congruent. And if you want to move on from Micah Parsons because he is not a cultural fit in your locker room or something like that, that's justifiable. If you're planning for the future, that's all justifiable. What I have a hard time with is finding the other decisions and the other behaviors around this decision that suggest that there's some sort of plan. And maybe they will come. So I appreciate that a player can demand a trade and then it actually happens and he gets his money. Now I'm looking for what Jerry Jones does next to make this particular decision make some sense and make us understand what he's aiming for, because it's obviously not a Super Bowl this season.
This decision will never make sense. No matter, look, the only way you can justify it, you may be able to justify it in the end if they wind up getting 2 future Pro Bowlers and they wind up being catalysts to kind of spur this team on to become some kind of postseason, juggernaut. But as far as the process and the manner by which they made this decision, you can never justify it. Because the fact of the matter is this: Micah wasn't a cultural problem. Jerry wanted to sign him. Supposedly they had a deal done. Jerry wanted him to be a Cowboy for life. Micah wanted to be a Cowboy for life. This became something about, no, you said we had a deal, now you're involving your agent. Whatever Jerry has as far as his issues with Micah's representation is a whole different story that maybe the truth hasn't even come out. I mean, this was not, you can never justify the manner in which they arrived at this. You just can't, because the fact is he wanted him to be there. This became something that really transcends the whole business of football. This became strictly personal. How dare you balk on a deal that you and I talked about when we were supposed to be having a conversation about leadership initially anyway? How dare you not go against my wishes? I'm the owner of the Dallas Cowboys. How dare you go against that, Micah? How dare you not accept a deal even though your representation wasn't here? I mean, that's what this came, and there's no way you can defend that. There's no way you can justify that.
And look, we don't need to relitigate the trade. We know what happened. We know what happened. I'm just looking at what he just said. I'm taking on face value what he just said. When you need numbers, I'll take the numbers every time.
But
that's not the way you handled the Dak Prescott situation. It's not the way you handled the CeeDee Lamb situation. You could have signed both those guys way before and saved a lot more numbers. They managed to spend much more money on everything than they need to, and then they just sold off, for lack of a better way of putting it, Micah Parsons for way less than they could have gotten. That is an absolutely terrible way to do business. It is the opposite. Dominique, how can you be taking the other side of this? I'm confounded by the expression on your face.
I am not taking the other side of this at all. I'm saying that we owe it to him to at least try to make it make sense, and he's not doing other things that make sense. There's one mistake that you're making, Greeny, is that you're believing that the things that Jerry says are things that he means. I think he says words sometimes that are not connected to the truth. And I also believe that you're interpreting his idea of numbers as differently. I think he's saying, I'll take the numbers as far as more players, more opportunities than overtaking the one player in this situation.
Right.
The problem is, in
which is why you
football,
don't
there's a
pay your
cap on the
quarterback
salary,
way more
and there's
than
a cap on the roster size.
Right.
And the roster size means that if you can get one player that is worth 6 players, give me that guy instead of 6 players that equal up to the value of the one player. So I don't agree with Jerry Jones. I just think that it's worth trying to consider that there's some plan after this. There needs to be more steps that suggest that they have some goal for the future.
Why are you doing Jerry's homework for him? Why do you feel that we owe it to Jerry to make sense of what Jerry is saying when you just said a lot of what Jerry says isn't actually rooted in the truth? Like, you have one proven player. We see the statistics with Micah Parsons. Give me all the quantity. Maybe I'll hit on a couple of them. You already hit on one. I don't understand. I don't understand.
And we'll say this. We all look.
Nick, go ahead.
I don't believe that we owe it to Jerry. We owe it to ourselves, and we owe it to the audience to try to make this make some sort of sense. We can continue to say that Jerry is a buffoon, which we have been saying all damn summer. At this point, I'm trying to figure out if there's some change in plans for Jerry Jones, if the next decision that he makes suggests that there's a change of course. The major problem with this decision, not only that you're giving up a future Hall of Famer, is that it doesn't make sense for this season. It doesn't make sense for this team. When there are other decisions, if that makes some sort of sense, then I would say, all right, at least there's a plan. It's not something I believe in, but at least there's a plan.
Albeit it was in March when the deal was done. But the Kansas City Chiefs had just won a Super Bowl, and they had Tyreek Hill, the most explosive player in all of football, and they traded him for a couple draft picks, and those draft picks became Trent McDuffie and George Karlaftis, and they used that trade to start rebuilding the team and getting younger on cheaper contracts, and they went on to win 2 more Super Bowls. Jerry Jones ain't Brett Veach. I know that. However, we can't act like this is unprecedented trading a player in the NFL.
and even in that situation, they wanted to re-sign Tyreek. They tried to re-sign Tyreek, and then they said, okay, you know what? But it didn't become personal.
And it was never contentious. In fact, Tyreek still has fond feelings for Kansas City.
Right. By the way, I could live without Hembo sneaking in passive-aggressive statistics during the conversation just to try and make me feel bad. In the meantime, let's talk about the play. Yeah, that guy, that little evil genius over there that we have in the corner. Go ahead, take Jonathan's camera and show. Yeah, that's it. He's just sitting there. He's just sitting there throwing in a little statistic at me.
I saw.
Don't think I didn't notice that. In the meantime, let me put up C23. Because this is the player that the Dallas Cowboys just traded away. Since the Green Bay Packers acquired Micah Parsons on August 28th, 50% of the total money wagered on who will win the Defensive Player of the Year award at ESPN Bet Sportsbook has been placed on Micah Parsons. So I would ask you, Peter Schrager, in your line of work, you're not allowed to make any wagers, but were you? Right now, do you think the best bet to be Defensive Player of the Year is Micah Parsons?
Yeah, I do. I think he's going to be playing with a giant chip on his shoulder, and they've got a really good defense around him, and it's a popular pick, especially from the writers who are going to be the ones voting on this, who are going to say, look what he did for the Packers, look what he did for the defense. Remember, this is not an objective award that you can just earn. People vote on it, and I think there's a lot of human element that is rooting for Micah Parsons to make this trade look right.
Yeah, Kmart, it's those damn writers. We all know you guys are the problem. How about it? Right now, is he going to be the Defensive Player of the Year?
Is he? I don't know. But like Peter just said, there's plenty of reason to expect that Packers defense. He's the extra on top of a team that we already expected could be a Super Bowl contender. Yeah, I could see it. Rashawn Gary, this defense. Yeah, I could see that.
We basically just saw this. Micah Parsons being the defensive player of the year and the Green Bay Packers winning the Super Bowl would be to the Cowboys exactly what Saquon Barkley being the offensive player of the year and the Eagles winning the Super Bowl was to the Giants last year. It's exactly the same thing. It is like in their face every single
It might not be Hard Knocks,
time.
but we've got Good Morning America and plenty of receipts.
That's exactly right. Go ahead, Nick, finish it up.
No, I mean, it's a little different because at least the Giants didn't trade him to the Eagles. They just chose not to sign him. The Cowboys called up the Packers and was like, hey, want a Super Bowl? Here. Take Micah Parsons.
Take our best player.
That's right. It's the opposite. John Mara was like, I'm not going to sleep real well if he winds up with the Eagles. And the next thing you know, he's got the trophy and he's the #1 player in the league. Okay, speaking of the gambling, football is back. And right now, new